He did accept the bid, so that means it's time to load the goats up and take them to his backyard.
It was a chance in a lifetime. It really wasn't about the dollar amount, it was about the experience. My kids were out here every day petting the goats, playing with the goats. They were herding them around the yard.
These are the best backyards for us to get into because the fencing is fantastic. We've got block wall all the way around. Some of this is 10 feet tall. Around the edges is at least a minimum of 5, all the way up to 6 feet. So makes for a very secure, wonderful setup. A lot of weeds in this particular yard, a lot of tumbleweed. There's a little bit of what we call 4-winged saltbush. There's a couple trees, an elm tree, a cottonwood tree that he's not worried about, wants those gone. And so the diversity is not huge in this yard, but all things that the goats will eat. Even though these are dried tumbleweeds, they're gonna eat them. It's not just a night job. A lot of those times we just try to like drop goats off in the evening and then come back in the morning and pick them up. This is gonna be a 2-day job for a big crew. I would assume that this area right here is the leach field, and so it gets a lot of moisture, so these tumbleweeds are huge right here and still green to some degree. So there's a lot of feed right there. This backyard in Rio Rancho is about 1/4 acre in size. The primary vegetation is tumbleweed and 4-winged saltbush. For the vegetation on the majority of the yard, I would consider as medium density. But there are a few places that have extremely thick growth and very tall growth, which bumps the whole yard into heavy density. And the homeowner has a water faucet right nearby, so we'll be able to use that. So now I'll just go back to the house and I'll put together his formal estimate, get it out to him. And if he gives us the thumbs up, then we'll put him on the schedule and bring the goats. This particular job is about as ideal as it gets for me. It has fantastic access. The fencing is great. It's very secure. There's water available on site. But most importantly is it is very near in proximity to a job that we're doing for the city of Rio Rancho. So it'll be within a mile of where we're working and right on the path of where we're working in the bosque on our trip back to the house. So we can just stop right in there, drop off goats or pick up goats. And so it's very convenient. So it makes the price very affordable. Now, I had given this customer a preliminary bid of $485. That was based off of the pictures that he sent me and the address that he gave me. From that, he decided that was within his budget, so then we were able to set up a site visit for me to go meet with him and take a look at the yard. Now, as my preliminary bid states, there are factors that could increase that price, but that's just a bare minimum. So as I got there and I looked around and I talked with the customer, we agreed that there was a lot more forage or vegetation there than what we could really tell through the pictures. So I went ahead and upped that price to $585 for the job, which he seemed to be very happy with and asked for me to give him the final formal estimate. So in the state of New Mexico, all goods and services are taxed, so I have to charge tax on top of what my price is. So my price for this job is $585, and I have to charge gross receipts tax on top of that. So the total bid that goes out to this customer is going to be $628.51. So after conversations with the customer before I left, I feel very confident that he is going to give the green light on this, and this is going to be a great job for our goats. He did accept the bid, so that means it's time to load the goats up and take them to his backyard.
For loading up the goats, we send Q into the pen and she gathers them up and pushes them to the trailer. And from there, it's first come, first served. Whoever gets on the trailer first gets to go on an adventure. For this job, I'm just taking enough goats to fill up the blue top trailer.
All right, crew is loaded up. We got about a 20-minute drive, so off we go.
Once at the job site, the first thing to do is get the water tanks out and get water ready for the goats. On almost all of our backyard jobs, I make our customers honorary ranchers. As part of the contract, the customer agrees to allow us to use their water for the goats. We fill up the troughs initially, but after that, it's up to the customers to help keep our goats hydrated.
Now, even though I've been here before and the yard was really secure, before I let the goats out, I want to make sure that I'm looking around again, make sure something hadn't changed since the last time I was here. Everything looks great, and like I had said before, this is one of those yards that's just perfect. The access is so easy. There was a giant turnaround that I could use to back up. The walls are great, the security is great, water is great. It's gonna be a good job. All right, it's about 10:45 on a Saturday morning, and I've brought out probably about 85 goats into this yard. Now, what I anticipate and what my plan was is that I would drop them off here Saturday morning, and then on Monday, the crew will be going just down the road into the bosque, not too far away from here. It's only about 1.5 miles away. So on their way into work on Monday, they'll stop by here, pick these goats up, take them to the bosque. Now, if they're not finished with the job, because they do have a lot of forage in here, if they're not finished on Monday morning, then they'll just bring them back Monday evening, and we'll keep doing it until it's done. Now, there also is that chance that the goats get done before Monday morning. Well, I'll be in contact with the homeowner. We'll be looking at it together and decide whether we need to come back earlier or not. I don't think that's going to be the case. Hey, but you never know. They're goats. They're predictable and sometimes unpredictable. Well, my job here today is done. The goats are all in. They're acclimated. They look like they're just relaxed, eating, doing what goats do. So I'll be checking in with the homeowner. We'll be coming back when they're finished or when we need them on Monday.
It's been 2 days and 2 nights since we dropped off the goats, and it's time to get them picked up. And I think the goats are ready to go. Look at them. They're all just waiting for me.
Easy, down, down. Walk up, down. Good girl, come here. Good girl. Good girl. Okay, it's Monday morning at about 11:45, and we have picked up and loaded the goats, and they have really done a fantastic job. This yard was covered up in dried tumbleweeds, and for the most part, they have just really done a great job. Now, as I always tell the homeowners, in instances like this, some of these tumbleweeds won't get totally consumed. Wintertime is a challenge sometimes when it comes to tumbleweeds because the skeletons are not very appetizing to the goats. So that's something that I make the homeowners aware of, that we're going to get the majority of it, which we did. Boy, the goats did a really good job. I'm happy with their progress. There's going to be some left over. You can see big ones now, like that tumbleweed right there was from 2 years ago. That wasn't this year's tumbleweed. And it's just, I know that from experience. I can tell with that gray coloring, and that was last year's tumbleweed that was still sitting here. The one place that was just totally overgrown was this area right here. Gets a lot of moisture. I don't know whether it's the rainfall or the water coming off of the sheds. Maybe they have a leach field out in this area. But this, if you remember, was really overgrown. And again, for the most part, they got it. The bigger these tumbleweeds get, the harder it is for the goats to consume all of it. They get the majority of it, but they don't get it all. Okay, so now what do we do in this instance? In this particular situation, in talking with my homeowner, he understands that we're gonna have some left over, but we're gonna go ahead and send a crew back. Not a lot of tumbleweeds in the grand scheme of things. We're gonna go ahead and come in with pitchforks. We're gonna clean this all up and make it look really good for this customer. So our job here is almost done, but the goats did great.
But before we bring the crew back to get those tumbleweeds, we've got to take the goats to their day job. They are heading into the Willow Creek open space in Rio Rancho where they're doing a fire fuels reduction job for the next couple weeks. Good summer rains caused an overgrowth of weeds in this area. Those weeds have dried up and we have very little moisture, so the fire danger is extreme now.
I'll get the sign, don't worry. Right? Dude. Come here. Come here. Come here. Lie down. Load up.
Once the goats are released and we've got the fences situated,
Take this one, yeah.
Nick and Lucas will stay back and watch over the herd.
Nah.
And Abby and Alex will just head up the road and take care of the remaining tumbleweeds in the customer's backyard. They'll go in with pitchforks, pick up the tumbleweeds, load them into the trailer, and they'll take those tumbleweeds down the road to the dump and unload them.
You have a tumbleweed in your face.
Just a little bit. It's fine. It's cool.
In most cases, we don't have to do this. But in wintertime, and especially in areas where these tumbleweeds have gotten really out of control and really big, there's going to be some left over, and it's just more efficient for us to pick them up by hand than it is to just have the goats sitting there trying to work on them for several days. That's both inefficient use of their time, and it's not very healthy for the goats to do that. So, it's off to the dump we go. Now let's just look back and see what this yard looked like before the goats got in here. This yard was just absolutely covered up in tumbleweeds. And with the exception of just a few random weeds in this really thick area, the goats absolutely crushed it. It never ceases to amaze me about the amazing work that they do. And this job is no exception. I mean, this is a beautiful yard now. Those 85 goats were on this job for 2 days and 2 nights. Then Alex and Abby came back for about 45 minutes just to do the final touches. I'm obviously super proud of the job that the Chew crew did. But what I think really doesn't matter. The most important thing is what the customer has to say.
Well, John, tell me about your experience with having goats in your backyard.
It was a chance in a lifetime. It really wasn't about the dollar amount. It was about the experience. For me and my kids to see all the goats. If you would have seen the before and now after picture, it is amazing. My kids were out here every day petting the goats, playing with the goats. They were herding them around the yard, telling them where to go to eat the weeds. The goats would follow them like little dogs. It was an amazing experience.
And you sent me a picture of the kids all out here.
I did.
And so they just come out on their own?
They did. They
so
did.
Cool.
So I didn't even have to be out here. That's how safe the goats were.
So, John, why did you hire goats instead of people or a landscaping crew?
That's an easy answer. The price, obviously.
Yeah.
The price you quoted me, I was happy with it.
Great.
I had a couple other quotes from some landscapers, and it was a lot more than what you quoted. And then the experience with my kids.
Fantastic.
You don't get that kind of experience.
Yeah,
so
that's
once in a lifetime.
It's not a regular thing to have a whole bunch of goats running in your backyard.
It is awesome.
Fun thing for the kids.
Yes.
People ask me often. They're like, "Well, what about what about the manure? Because surely if they're eating, they're pooping." So
they are, and the manure is not bothering me. It's going to biodegrade, go into the ground, fertilize the ground. I mean, I'd rather have little pellet poops than goat heads. If you would have seen it, you could not walk in my backyard. I'm a vet, so it's kind of hard keeping up with maintaining my backyard, single dad. So this was awesome. It helped me out greatly.
Well, John, would you recommend somebody else hiring the goats to come work in the backyard?
I would recommend anyone hiring these goats, just even if you have a small property, just to have the experience for the kids and the family.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Also, so great to have wonderful customers that
yes, sir, and
are easy to work with and fun to work with.
I hope to have you back one day.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, John.
Well, I think that really says it all. Take a little time and just look at these before and after pictures. They are amazing. Another incredible job done by the crew of Galloping Goat Grazing. Have a goat day.